In Newark's Ironbound, where pastry windows shine and bills pile like winter snow, a single mother walks into a crumbling inheritance and a dog whose eyes carry storms. Power sits across the street in polished shoes, sure she will fail, until a small sign turns the tide. If stories of dignity move you, subscribe, like this video, and say where you're watching from. The autumn wind chased dead leaves across Cortlandt Street as Anna Beatrice climbed the warped wooden steps of the narrow house that would soon be hers, at least for now. Each board groaned beneath her worn sneakers, the sound reminding her of every temporary place she'd ever called home. The peeling blue paint curled like old letters nobody wanted to read anymore. She paused, key trembling between her fingers, the cold metal biting into her skin. "It's all yours," Victor Hargrove announced, stepping out of his gleaming black SUV with the casual confidence of a man who had never worried about rent. His tailored coat repelled the drizzle. His tie was the precise blue of corporate letterheads. He glanced at his phone more than at her. For the time being, anyway. Anna's daughter Sophia pressed against her side, 10 years old and already understanding what it meant to be unwelcome. The child's wool cap was damp with fog, her breath creating small clouds in the November air. Behind them, the ironbound district of Newark hummed with life. Portuguese voices from the bakery, diesel fumes from trucks heading toward the port, the distant clang of the light rail. "You understand this is temporary," Victor continued, his cologne overpowering the neighborhood's mixture of spices and industrial grit. "My firm is revitalizing this entire block by spring. People like you never make it through the first winter anyway." Anna felt heat rise to her face but kept her expression neutral. 6 years of cleaning office buildings had taught her the invisibility that kept her employed. "We will manage," she said, her accent wrapping around the words. "My," Sophia whispered, tugging at her sleeve. "Can we go inside?" "I'm cold." Anna turned the key. The door hinges complained with a long, rusty moan as if warning them about what lay ahead. Inside, dust motes danced in the pale light filtering through grimy windows. The air smelled of abandonment, mildew and forgotten meals and the ghost of someone else's life. A thin brown dog lay curled beside the staircase, ribs visible beneath his patchy coat, eyes the color of weak tea. He lifted his head, ears perked in cautious curiosity. "The previous tenant left him," Victor said with distaste. "Animal control is backed up. Consider him part of the package." Sophia immediately crouched, hand extended. "Hello," she said softly. "We have papers to sign," Victor interrupted, checking his watch. "I don't have all day." The kitchen was small, its linoleum floor peeling at the corners. A single light bulb hung from a frayed cord, casting a jaundiced glow. The refrigerator hummed ominously, a sound that suggested imminent surrender. On the counter sat a single decorative tile, an azulejo with 2 blue swallows in flight, the only splash of color in the dreary space. "The old lady left that," Victor said, noticing Anna's gaze. "Portuguese, I think. Refused to leave until the end." He shuffled papers from his leather portfolio. "Sign here." "And here. Monthly payment schedule is attached. 3 months delinquency and you're out automatically." Anna's hand moved mechanically across the pages. Each signature felt like another promise she wasn't sure she could keep. "Just so we're clear," Victor added as he collected the papers, "this house is coming down eventually. I'm being generous letting you stay at all." Sophia had coaxed the dog into the kitchen. He moved gingerly as if expecting to be sent away. "Look, Mai, he likes us," she said, her smile a small miracle in the cheerless room. Victor snapped his portfolio shut. "Temporary people, temporary addresses," he murmured and walked toward the door. "Don't get too comfortable." The door closed behind him with a decisive click. Anna remained standing in the kitchen, hands clenched at her sides. The radiator beneath the window clanked and hissed, then settled into a rhythmic ticking. Can we keep him? Sophia asked, stroking the dog's head. Anna looked at her daughter, dark eyes too serious for a child, shoulders already accustomed to carrying disappointment. She looked at the thin dog, trembling slightly but inching closer to Sophia's warmth. She looked at the blue swallows on the tile, frozen mid-flight but somehow still moving forward. Yes, she said finally, he stays with us. That night, after Sophia had fallen asleep in the small bedroom they would share until Anna could afford a proper bed frame for the second room, Anna sat at the kitchen table. The house settled around her, each creak and whisper telling the story of other lives, other struggles. The dog, whom Sophia had named Fado because he looks like he understands sad songs, lay at her feet, his body warm against her ankles. She traced the outline of the swallows on the tile with her fingertip. Her mother used to say birds knew the way home, even when humans lost their direction. Anna had spent years cleaning offices while others made decisions in them, watching her daughter grow up in the margins of other people's certainty. 6 different apartments in 8 years, each one a stopping place rather than a destination. Outside, a train rumbled past, its horn a mournful question mark in the night. The dog sighed in his sleep. Anna spread her papers across the table. Work schedules, Sophia's school enrollment forms, a calendar with payment dates circled in red. The numbers refused to add up to anything but worry. The kitchen faucet dripped, each drop hitting the stained sink with a tiny, persistent chime. Tomorrow she would tighten it. Tomorrow she would make this place less broken. Tomorrow she would prove Victor Hargrove wrong about temporary people. Anna looked at the tile again, at the 2 birds flying together towards something unseen. She had survived crossing an ocean, losing a husband to another woman's promises, raising a child alone in a language she was still learning. This house, with its tired bones and uncertain future, was not the end of her story. "We are staying," she whispered to the sleeping dog, to the listening walls, to herself. The radiator answered with a soft, affirming knock. December arrived with a cruelty that only the poor truly understood. The wind slipped through the house's thin walls like a thief, stealing warmth faster than the ancient radiators could replace it. Anna wrapped Sophia in layers before school. 2 shirts, a sweater, the coat they'd found at St. Vincent's thrift shop that was too big but would last longer. They breathed white clouds in the kitchen while waiting for toast. "Will it snow today?" Sophia asked, her voice muffled by a scarf Anna had knitted during midnight hours between shifts. "Perhaps," Anna replied, checking the kitchen window where frost traced delicate patterns like memories of a home she'd left behind in Bahia. "But you still have school." Sophia nodded solemnly, used to disappointment wearing the mask of responsibility. Fado watched from his corner, his coat growing fuller now that regular meals had become part of his life. The dog followed Sophia everywhere, a sentinel with amber eyes that seemed to understand more than any animal should. Anna had learned to navigate Newark's rhythms in the 4 years since arriving from Brazil. Morning buses that growled through slush, the particular weight of cleaning supplies in her arms at 5 a.m., the way certain buildings downtown kept their lobby lights burning all night, creating the illusion of welcome while security guards watched for people who didn't belong. She worked 3 jobs now: morning shifts at an insurance office where executives never saw her, afternoon hours at an elderly Portuguese woman's apartment, cooking meals that reminded the woman of her childhood, evening work at the bakery where Dona Teresa had taken pity on her, teaching her to fold dough into stars and crescents, paying her partly in bread that Sophia could take to school. Between jobs, Anna collected discarded treasures: a lamp with a chipped base that worked perfectly once rewired, curtains someone had deemed too faded but that still blocked drafts, a small bookshelf missing 1 foot that a phone book propped up nicely. The house slowly transformed, its resignation giving way to small instances of dignity. "I made you something," Sophia announced one evening, her hands hiding an object behind her back. It had been a hard day. Anna's bus had broken down, making her late to Mrs. Pereira's apartment, and the old woman had been sharp with disappointment. Sophia revealed her creation, a drawing of their house rendered in careful colored pencil, strokes. She'd added impossible flowers blooming along the porch, vibrant against the paper's white winter. In the window, 3 figures gazed out: Anna, Sophia, and Fado, all wearing identical smiles. "It's for the refrigerator," Sophia explained. "So everyone knows it's ours." Anna's throat tightened. She took the drawing with reverent hands as if it were made of something far more precious than paper. "It's beautiful, Minya querida." She secured it to the refrigerator with their only magnet, a pizza advertisement that Sophia had rescued from a discarded flyer. That night, after Sophia's breathing had deepened into sleep, Anna sat at the kitchen table with her memory box. Inside, her mother's recipe for fish stew, written in a hand that arthritis had twisted. A photograph of her father standing proudly beside his taxi in Salvador. The broken piece of an azulejo tile identical to the one on the counter. Its fracture running through the sun like an omen. She had found the original tile at a street fair her first year in America, before Sophia's father had decided that fidelity was too heavy a burden. The twin swallows had reminded her of a story her grandmother told, that swallows mated for life and carried souls between worlds. Anna had paid too much for it, but some purchases were investments in hope rather than objects. Later, during one of their hasty moves, the tile had fallen and cracked. She kept the fragment wrapped in a dish towel, unwilling to discard even a broken promise. The intact tile on the counter left behind by the previous tenant felt like a message from a stranger who understood loss. Anna touched both tiles, the whole and the broken, feeling a kinship with whoever had chosen the same image to represent home. Days accumulated into weeks. Anna established routines that made survival possible. She learned which floorboards to avoid during Sophia's spelling tests, which windows to stuff with extra cloth when north winds bullied the glass. She discovered that the bathtub filled faster if no other taps were running, that the kitchen's south wall trapped afternoon sun like a battery storing light. Fado developed his own patterns. Every morning he escorted Sophia to the bus stop at the corner, waiting until the yellow vehicle swallowed her before returning to the porch. Each evening he positioned himself near the stove, staring intently at a particular section of flooring as if expecting it to speak. At first, Anna thought he was tracking mice, but pest traps remained empty, and his fascination never wavered. On Sundays, Anna's only full day with Sophia, they explored their neighborhood on foot. The Ironbound district had been home to waves of immigrants, Portuguese, Spanish, Brazilian, each leaving cultural fingerprints on storefronts and restaurant menus. They discovered a small park where pigeons congregated around benches, a library branch that didn't ask too many questions about proof of address, a church where Father Miguel delivered sermons in 3 languages. "Why is it called Ironbound?" Sophia asked as they walked home one evening, the streetlights just beginning to glow against the early darkness. "Because of the railroad tracks and factories that surround it," Anna explained, "like a fence made of iron." Sophia considered this, her face thoughtful beyond her years. "So we're trapped inside?" Anna squeezed her daughter's hand. "No, meu amor, it means we're connected to everywhere the trains can go." Later that week, Anna noticed Sophia sitting on the kitchen floor beside Fado, both of them focused on the same section of flooring that had become the dog's obsession. "He thinks something's under there," Sophia declared. "I can hear it too sometimes." Like a whisper when nobody's talking. Anna dismissed it as the house settling or pipes expanding, the ordinary complaints of old buildings. Yet sometimes in the liminal space between wakefulness and sleep, she imagined she heard it too. A subtle creak that seemed to carry intention rather than accident. January arrived with a fist of ice. The first week's heating bill made Anna's stomach clench with familiar anxiety. She began leaving the oven door open after baking, stretching a single resource into double duty. She sewed extra linings into Sophia's school clothes, stuffing them with wool unraveled from thrift store sweaters. One evening, returning from Mrs. Pereira's apartment, Anna found a certified letter wedged in the doorframe. The envelope bore the city seal, its official weight more threatening than its actual ounces. Inside, a notice of property tax delinquency, a schedule of proceedings, a warning of possible eviction due to disputed ownership claims. Victor Hargrove's business card was stapled to the corner. On the back, a handwritten note. As discussed, temporary arrangements have expiration dates. Call me for a generous relocation allowance. Anna's hands went cold, then hot. The paper trembled between her fingers like a living thing fighting for breath. Sophia looked up from her homework, eyes darkening at her mother's expression. "What's wrong?" she asked, suddenly sounding younger than her years. Anna forced her voice into a casualness she didn't feel. "Just grown-up papers, nothing important." But Fado knew better. The dog rose from his spot by the stove, pressed his warm body against her legs, and made a soft sound in his throat. Not quite a whine, not quite a growl, as if he too recognized the scent of threat. That night, long after Sophia had surrendered to sleep, Anna stood in the kitchen, the blue swallows on the tile catching moonlight through the window. The house seemed to hold its breath around her. The radiator's usual commentary had fallen silent. Even the refrigerator's hum sounded muted, as if the appliances were listening for her next move. "We are not leaving," Anna whispered to the watching walls, to the dog whose eyes reflected silver in the dark, to the ghosts of every person who had ever fought to stay somewhere that mattered. "This house is not finished with us yet." Anna slept fitfully that night, her dreams crowded with faceless officials and doors that locked from the outside. She woke before dawn, the bedroom cold enough to see her breath hovering above like reluctant ghosts. Sophia slept curled into a tight ball beneath 3 blankets, her face smooth with the innocent belief that adults could fix anything broken. The eviction notice lay on the kitchen table where Anna had left it, its official language a wall she couldn't climb. She made coffee in the battered pot that dripped unless you positioned the handle just so, trying to think through the fog of worry. Victor's generous relocation allowance would barely cover first month's rent somewhere else, somewhere further from Sophia's school, from the bakery that sometimes gave Anna extra hours, from the community that had begun to feel like an extension of the walls around them. "You're up early," Sophia said, shuffling into the kitchen in sock feet, Fado trailing behind her. The dog went immediately to his spot near the stove, sitting with the patient focus that had become his habit. "I couldn't sleep," Anna admitted, pouring milk into Sophia's cereal bowl. "Too many thoughts." Sophia's eyes traveled to the notice on the table. "Is it about the house?" Children absorbed truth through their skin, Anna thought. No matter how carefully adults folded their worries away, children felt the weight of them. "Yes," she said simply. "There are some problems with the papers." "Are we going to have to leave?" Anna considered lying, then decided against it. Sophia had earned honesty by surviving their shared hardships. "I'm going to try everything possible to prevent that." Sophia nodded solemnly. Then, with the resilience that never failed to humble Anna, she pointed to Fado. "He's doing it again. Watch." The dog had risen and was pawing gently at the floorboards, his nails making a soft clicking sound against the wood. He whined, looking back at them as if frustrated by their lack of understanding. "He's been doing that for weeks," Sophia said. "I think he's trying to tell us something." Anna had dismissed the behavior as animal eccentricity, the kind of ritual pets developed in new surroundings. But seeing it now, the deliberate way Fado indicated the exact same spot, the intelligence in his amber eyes, she wondered if there might be something more. "Let's look," she said, kneeling beside the dog. The floorboards here seemed identical to the others, worn pine with decades of foot traffic embedded in the grain. She pressed her palm against the wood. Was it her imagination, or did this section feel slightly warmer? Sophia returned from the kitchen drawer with a butter knife and a flashlight she'd received for Christmas, her only gift besides new mittens and a second-hand book about constellation myths. "We need to be gentle," Sophia instructed, speaking more to the floor than to her mother. "It's old, like Mrs. Pereira." Anna smiled despite her worry. She took the knife and carefully probed the seam between boards. The blade slid deeper at one point, as if the wood had pulled away from its neighbors. "There," Sophia whispered, aiming her flashlight beam. "See how those nails look different?" Anna hadn't noticed, but Sophia was right. 3 nails in this section didn't match the others. Newer, their heads not worn down by decades of passage. Someone had removed and replaced this board, and not too long ago. Fado sat back on his haunches, watching with an expectant tilt to his head. Should we? Anna asked, suddenly uncertain. Prying up floorboards in a house she might lose seemed like tempting fate. Sophia nodded with a child's certainty. Fado knows something important. Anna worked the knife along the edges, feeling the wood give slightly. A soft popping sound, then the board lifted. Sophia aimed her flashlight into the shallow space beneath. The beam caught something metal, a rectangular tin box with faded decorative edges. Dust had settled on its lid, but not thickly, suggesting it hadn't been hidden for decades. Anna lifted it carefully. The box was surprisingly heavy, cool against her palms. Open it, Sophia urged, her voice hushed with discovery. Anna brushed away the dust. On the lid, barely visible in the early morning light, was a painted swallow, blue fading to silver with age, the twin of those on her treasured tiles. Her hands trembled slightly as she pried open the lid. Inside, protected from time and damp, lay a stack of papers bound with faded ribbon, envelopes addressed in careful script, photographs in black and white showing the house in earlier days, the porch still straight, windows uncracked, a woman in an apron standing proudly by the door. Official-looking documents with stamps and seals, a small metal tag with FADO etched into the surface. Look, Sophia whispered, lifting the tag. It has his name. Anna spread the papers across the table, moving the eviction notice aside. The documents were dated, some going back 50 years. Property deeds, tax receipts with the city seal, letters written in Portuguese, then later in careful, studied English. The handwriting remained the same across decades. Maria Lucinda Tavares, the name repeated on envelope after envelope. The last letter was dated just 6 months earlier. Anna read it slowly, translating the formal English in her head. She died, Anna said softly. The woman who lived here before. Maria Tavares. She had no children, no family left, but she paid the taxes until the end. She shuffled through more papers. These are receipts, records of payments, and this... She held up a legal document. I think this is a will. Sophia leaned against her mother's arm. What does it say? I'm not sure. The words are complicated. Anna set it aside to study later. But look at this. She held up a photograph showing a younger Maria, standing beside a thin dog with amber eyes, its head tilted in the exact same way Fado's was at that moment. It's him, Sophia breathed. Or his grandfather, maybe. Anna wasn't superstitious, but something prickled along her spine. The dog's uncanny focus on this hiding spot. The matching swallows on the tin and on her treasured tile. The name that Sophia had chosen without knowing its history. We need help, Anna decided, gathering the papers carefully. Someone who understands these legal words. Outside, the day had fully arrived. Winter sunshine thin but determined. Anna called Sophia's school to report she would be late, then dialed the bakery. Dona Teresa answered, her Portuguese accent flowing like warm honey even in English. Anna? Is everything well? I need advice, Anna said, explaining about the eviction notice and their discovery. Do you know anyone who could help me understand these papers? Teresa's response was immediate. Mr. O'Malley, he worked at the county clerk's office for 30 years before retiring. He comes every morning for coffee and sweet bread. I'll call him now. Within an hour, their kitchen had become an unofficial council chamber. Mr. O'Malley, a tall man with silver hair and hearing aids that occasionally emitted a high-pitched whistle, spread the documents across the table. Dona Teresa stood beside him, reading glasses perched on her nose. Fado lay at Sophia's feet, seemingly content now that the humans had finally understood his message. "This is quite extraordinary," Mr. O'Malley said, tapping one document. "Maria Tavares owned this house outright for 40 years, paid every tax bill on time." He shuffled through more papers. "These are the original deed and subsequent tax records. And this—" He held up the document Anna had set aside. "This is her last will and testament." "What does it say?" Anna asked, heart beating faster. "It says that upon her death, the house was to be offered at a reduced rate to a family in need, specifically a single mother with a child." He looked up, eyes bright behind thick glasses. "The executor appears to be the parish priest at St. James, Father Miguel." "I know him," Anna said, "from the church on Ferry Street." Donna Teresa nodded. Maria was devoted to St. James her whole life. Father Miguel visited her often in her last months. Mr. O'Malley continued reading. "It seems there was a misunderstanding or perhaps deliberate obfuscation after her death. These documents indicate she granted a 6-month option to Victor Hargrove's development company, contingent on certain conditions being met." He frowned. Those conditions included preservation of the original structure and conversion to affordable housing units. If those conditions weren't met, the option expired and her will took precedence. "And what about the tax delinquency notice?" Anna asked, pointing to the city letter. Mr. O'Malley examined it closely. "This is concerning the most recent quarter, but look here." He pulled out a receipt from the tin. "Maria paid a full year in advance before she died. This payment should have covered until next April." Donna Teresa's expression hardened. "Someone is trying to pull strings at the tax office. I've seen this before when developers want to clear a block." "So what can we do?" Anna asked, hope and anxiety wrestling in her chest. "You take these papers to the county recorder's office," Mr. O'Malley said firmly. "Today. Ask for Miss Williams. She's fair and thorough. And call Father Miguel immediately. As executor, he should have been involved in any transfer of the property." Sophia, who had been listening intently, looked up at her mother. "The house was waiting for us," she said with simple certainty. "That's why the dog has the same name." Anna felt something shift inside her. A realignment of possibility, a settling of purpose. The blue swallows on the tile seemed to flicker with new energy in the morning light. "I need to get dressed," she said, standing with sudden resolve. "We have somewhere important to be." Donna Teresa squeezed her hand. "I'll watch Sophia if you need to go alone." "No," Anna replied, looking at her daughter. "We go together." "This concerns both of us." As they prepared to leave, Anna carefully placed the tile fragment from her memory box beside the intact one on the counter. The two pieces, one whole, one broken, complemented each other like before and after, question and answer. She wrapped the tin's contents back in their ribbons and placed them in her most reliable bag. Fado watched from his place by the stove, his mission completed, his amber eyes following their movements with what Anna could only describe as satisfaction. "Thank you," she whispered to the dog when Sophia wasn't listening, "for showing us where to look." Outside, the ironbound district was coming fully alive. Delivery trucks rumbling toward restaurants, shopkeepers sweeping sidewalks, children navigating to school in colorful winter coats. The neighborhood had a pulse Anna could feel beneath her feet, a rhythm made of struggle and persistence and the daily courage of people making homes far from where they began. She took Sophia's mittened hand in hers, the precious bag of documents secure against her side. For the first time since the eviction notice had arrived, Anna felt her spine straighten with something more substantial than defiance. The quiet, powerful certainty that some battles were worth every ounce of strength you could summon. "Ready?" she asked her daughter. Sophia nodded, her face solemn but her eyes bright with possibility. "Ready." Essex County Hall of Records stood like a stone guardian at the edge of downtown Newark, its marble steps worn smooth by decades of worried footsteps. Anna clutched Sophia's hand as they climbed, the precious bag of documents thumping against her hip with each step. February wind cut through her inadequate coat, but she hardly felt it. Purpose generated its own warmth. Inside, the high-ceilinged lobby smelled of floor polish and old paper. Voices echoed against marble, creating a cathedral of bureaucracy. Sophia pressed closer to her mother, overwhelmed by the vastness. Fado had stayed home. County buildings had firm rules about four-legged visitors, but his discovery had given them direction like a compass, pointing true north. "May I help you?" asked a security guard, his expression professional but not unkind. "Records department," Anna replied, the words rehearsed during their bus ride. "Miss Williams, please." He pointed toward a bank of elevators. "Third floor, room 312. The elevator smelled of coffee and wool coats. Sophia leaned against Anna's side, her small body warm through layers of clothing. They hadn't spoken much since leaving home, both feeling the weight of what lay ahead. When the doors opened, they followed signs down a corridor where fluorescent lights hummed overhead like nervous insects. Room 312 was busy with the quiet industry of public service. Clerks behind high counters, visitors filling out forms, phones ringing with muted persistence. Anna approached the reception desk, conscious of her accent, her simple clothes, the way official spaces often made her invisible. "I need to see Miss William," she said, straightening her spine. Mr. O'Malley from the clerk's office recommended her. The receptionist's eyebrows lifted slightly at O'Malley's name. "One moment." While they waited, Sophia studied a large map of Essex County on the wall, her finger tracing the iron-bound district where their house stood. "We're so small on this," she whispered. "But still on the map," Anna replied softly. Ms. Williams turned out to be a middle-aged black woman with silver-framed glasses and a voice like smooth stones in a river. She escorted them to a small conference room where the fluorescent harshness gave way to the gentler light of a desk lamp. "Mr. O'Malley called ahead," she explained, gesturing toward chairs. "He mentioned a potential tax discrepancy and title issue." Anna carefully unpacked the tin box, arranging the documents in chronological order, as Mr. O'Malley had suggested. Ms. Williams leaned forward, her professional distance softening into genuine interest as Anna explained their situation. The house, Victor's development plans, the eviction notice, and their discovery beneath the floorboards. "May I?" Miss Williams asked, reaching for the property deed. She studied it with practiced eyes, then examined the tax receipts. Her fingers moved with the reverence of someone who understood that behind every official document lay a human story. "These appear legitimate," she said finally. "Maria Tavares maintained clear title and consistent tax payments." She tapped the most recent receipt. "This payment should indeed cover through April. I'll need to check our records to see why a delinquency notice was generated." Sophia, who had been quietly watching, suddenly spoke. "The man wants to knock down our house. He says we're temporary." Ms. Williams' eyes softened as they met Sophia's. "Well, young lady, property rights aren't about who has the biggest plans, but who has the proper papers." "And these?" She gestured to the documents. "These are very proper indeed." She turned back to Anna. "I'll need to make copies of everything. Then we should contact the tax assessor's office immediately. And you mentioned a will?" Anna nodded, producing the legal document with its formal language and official seals. "We haven't spoken with Father Miguel yet. Mr. O'Malley said we should see you first." "Good advice." Ms. Williams skimmed the will, her expression growing more interested with each paragraph. "This establishes clear conditions for the property transfer. If the development company failed to meet these conditions, the option expired. According to this, Father Miguel was authorized to implement the secondary provision, offering the property to a family matching your exact circumstances." Hope fluttered in Anna's chest, a small bird testing new wings. "So the house could be ours?" "Legally? It's certainly possible. But we need to establish the facts systematically." Miss Williams stood. "I'm going to make these copies, then place some calls." It may take some time. The next 3 hours stretched like taffy, sweet with possibility, but pulling Anna's nerves thin. Sophia drew pictures on scrap paper provided by a sympathetic clerk. They shared a sandwich from Anna's bag, rationing small bites to make it last. Officials came and went, photocopiers hummed, phones rang. The machinery of government ground slowly but with inexorable purpose. Mid-afternoon, Ms. Williams returned with a man who introduced himself as Deputy Tax Assessor Rivera. His tie was slightly askew, as if he'd been summoned from important work. "I've reviewed the records," he said without preamble. "There appears to have been an error, or perhaps a deliberate misrepresentation. The property was marked delinquent, despite evidence of payment. I've initiated an investigation and placed a hold on any further proceedings." Anna's English failed her momentarily. "A hold means?" "It means no action can be taken regarding the property until our investigation is complete," he explained. "No evictions, no transfers, no demolition permits?" Sophia tugged at Anna's sleeve. "So we can stay?" Rivera softened at the child's question. "For now, yes. We need to sort out some adult business, but no one will make you leave while we're doing that." Ms. Williams returned with fresh copies of all the documents. "I've spoken with the county recorder's office. They're sending over the complete property history and—" She glanced at her watch. "Father Miguel should be here shortly. I took the liberty of calling St. James when I saw his name on the will." Anna felt dizzy with the sudden momentum, the way strangers were mobilizing around their cause. People in positions of authority were listening to her. A cleaning woman, an immigrant, someone Victor Hargrove had dismissed as temporary. Father Miguel arrived as promised, his black coat dusted with the day's first snowflakes. He embraced Anna warmly. "I've been hoping to hear from you," he said. "When Maria passed, things happened very quickly. The development company presented paperwork, and the church's attorney advised me not to interfere. But I never felt right about it." In the small conference room, now crowded with officials, Father Miguel examined the will. "Yes, this is what Maria intended." She was very specific. She wanted her home to go to a family like yours, Anna. Someone starting over, someone who would love the house as she had. "Did she mention a dog named Fado?" Sophia asked suddenly. Father Miguel smiled. "Indeed she did. Her companion for many years. She spoke of him as if he were still with her, even after he passed." Sophia nodded sagely. "He came back to help us find the papers." The adults exchanged glances, but no one contradicted her. By late afternoon, the impromptu council had reached several conclusions. The tax delinquency notice would be rescinded immediately. Victor's development company's option had indeed expired when they failed to meet Maria's conditions for preservation. Most importantly, there appeared to be legal grounds for honoring Maria's wishes regarding the transfer of property to Anna and Sophia. "There will still be procedures to follow," Ms. Williams cautioned. "Legal papers to file, a court appearance likely, and Mr. Hargrove's company will almost certainly contest this." "But we have truth on our side," Father Miguel said, "and Maria's clear intentions." As they prepared to leave, Deputy Rivera handed Anna his card. "Call me directly if you receive any further notices, or if anyone attempts to pressure you to leave." Anna tucked the card carefully into her wallet. "Thank you. All of you. I didn't expect—" "Justice?" Miss Williams suggested gently. "It's what we're supposed to provide, even if we sometimes fall short." Outside, snow was falling in earnest, transforming Newark's concrete edges into something softer, more forgiving. Sophia tilted her face upward, catching flakes on her eyelashes. "It's like confetti," she said, "for celebrating." Anna pulled her daughter close as they descended the marble steps. The wind had gentled, or perhaps it simply couldn't penetrate the warmth spreading through her chest. The documents were safely copied, their originals returned to the tin box in her bag. Each paper represented a strand in a net that might catch them if they fell. "Are we going home now?" Sophia asked. Home. The word had always been provisional in Anna's vocabulary, a temporary designation for wherever they happened to sleep. But today it felt different on her tongue. Substantial, rooted, possible. Yes, she said, her breath clouding in the winter air. We're going home. They caught the bus just as twilight was settling over the city. Streetlights blinked on, reflecting off fresh snow. The Ironbound welcomed them back with the smell of garlic and grilled meat from restaurants preparing for dinner service, with Portuguese music drifting from car windows, with the distant clang of the light rail announcing arrivals and departures. As they turned onto Cortlandt Street, Anna noticed a black SUV parked near their house. Victor Hargrove stood on the sidewalk, phone pressed to his ear, his expression stormy. When he saw them approaching, he ended his call abruptly. There you are, he said, his smile tight and commercial. I've been trying to reach you all day. Anna tightened her grip on Sophia's hand. Inside her chest, fear wrestled with newfound strength. The papers in her bag felt suddenly heavier, like stones that could either sink or save her. Mr. Hargrove, she acknowledged, stopping several feet away from him. We've been at the county offices. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, perhaps, or the first shadow of doubt. I see. Well, I wanted to discuss the relocation offer personally. The timeline has accelerated, and we're prepared to be quite generous if you can vacate by the end of the week. Sophia pressed against Anna's side. Through the window, they could see Fado watching from the porch, his amber eyes reflecting porch light. Anna took a deep breath, feeling the cold air fill her lungs, feeling the solid ground beneath her feet. That won't be necessary, she said, her voice steadier than she'd expected. We're not going anywhere. Victor's polished composure cracked slightly, like thin ice beneath an unexpected weight. I'm afraid you misunderstand the situation, he said, his voice lowered. This isn't a negotiation. The property has been slated for redevelopment for months. Anna stood her ground, snow collecting on her shoulders. The situation has changed. Maria Tavares left instructions about her home, and we've found the documents to prove it. Victor's eyes narrowed. Maria Tavares was a confused old woman who didn't understand real estate law. Whatever papers you think you've found won't stand up to my company's legal team. Perhaps we should discuss this another time, Anna suggested, conscious of Sophia listening to every word, of neighbors walking past with curious glances. It's cold and my daughter needs dinner. Something in Victor's expression hardened. By all means, enjoy your dinner, but understand this. Development is coming to Ironbound whether you like it or not. People like you are just speed bumps on the road to progress. He turned and stalked to his SUV, leaving boot prints in the fresh snow. Anna watched him drive away, her momentary courage faltering in his wake. His confidence was the kind that came with expensive lawyers and connections in city offices. Inside, the house welcomed them with creaking floors and Fado's soft whine of greeting. Sophia immediately knelt to embrace the dog, burying her face in his warm fur. We told the important people about the papers you helped us find, she whispered. They're going to help us stay. Anna hung their coats on the wobbly rack by the door, then placed the tin box carefully on the kitchen table. The blue swallows on the counter seemed to glow in the fading light. She made a simple dinner, eggs and bread and the last of yesterday's soup, while Sophia told Fado about their adventures downtown in the solemn, detailed way children speak to animals. After Sophia was tucked into bed, Anna sat alone at the kitchen table, doubt creeping in with the night's shadows. Victor's words echoed in her mind. Development is coming whether you like it or not. How many times had she seen it happen? Neighborhoods transformed not for the people who lived there, but for those who might replace them. Communities erased like chalk marks in rain. A soft knock at the door startled her. Through the peephole, she saw Donna Teresa, arms cradling a covered dish. Anna opened the door to the smell of bacalao and the warmth of neighborly concern. You look tired, querida, Teresa said, bustling in and placing the dish on the counter. Mr. O'Malley told me about your day at the county offices. I thought you might need dinner. Anna's eyes filled unexpectedly. Small kindnesses often penetrated deeper than grand gestures. Thank you, she managed. It's been a long day. Teresa settled at the table, her hands, roughened by decades of kneading dough, folded before her. Victor Hargrove came to the bakery this afternoon, asking questions about you. Anna's stomach tightened. What kind of questions? About how long you've lived here. Whether you've had problems paying rent before? Teresa's expression darkened. I told him nothing. That man has been trying to buy half the buildings on our block, offering prices that sound generous until you realize what the properties are really worth. He seemed very certain that his company will win, Anna admitted. Teresa reached across the table and squeezed Anna's hand. Men like that always seem certain. It's how they get their way. But sometimes, just sometimes, the small birds outfly the hawks. After Teresa left, Anna found herself unable to sleep. She sat by Sophia's bed, watching her daughter's peaceful breathing, then wandered through the small house like a sentry checking defenses. In the kitchen, she spread the copied documents across the table, reading them again in the dim light. Ms. Williams had marked key passages with yellow highlighter, adding notes in neat handwriting along the margins. Around midnight, Anna's phone rang. Father Miguel, his voice apologetic for the late hour. I've spoken with the diocesan attorney, he said. He believes Maria's will is legally sound. The development company may have procedural arguments, but the substance is clear. She wanted her home to go to a family like yours. Victor doesn't seem worried, Anna replied. Victor Hargrove relies on intimidation and the assumption that people won't fight back. Father Miguel paused. The attorney suggests we request an emergency hearing. The sooner we can get this before a judge, the better. 3 days later, Anna stood before the mirror in their tiny bathroom, attempting to tame her hair into something that suggested confidence. She wore her only dress suitable for formal occasions, navy blue with small white dots, purchased for a job interview 2 years earlier. Sophia had polished Anna's black shoes with a cloth dampened with cooking oil, rubbing until she could see her reflection in the toes. You look beautiful, Mai, Sophia said, watching from the doorway. Like a judge yourself. Anna smiled at her daughter's reflection. Not quite. But hopefully presentable enough to speak to one. The hearing had been scheduled with surprising speed, expedited by Miss Williams' concerns about potential irregularities in the tax proceedings. Deputy Rivera had personally reviewed the property records and found discrepancies that suggested, in his careful bureaucratic language, administrative inconsistencies requiring judicial review. The courtroom was smaller than Anna had imagined, more like a conference room with formal furniture. Judge Eleanor Patel, a woman with silver-streaked black hair and rectangular glasses, presided from a modest bench. To Anna's left sat Father Miguel and Mr. O'Malley. To her right, at a separate table, Victor Hargrove and 2 attorneys in suits that cost more than Anna earned in a month. Sophia had wanted to attend, but Anna had arranged for her to stay with Dona Teresa instead. Some battles children shouldn't have to witness, even when they had helped start them. Judge Patel began by reviewing the facts of the case, the competing claims to the property, the tax issues, Maria Tavares' will. Her voice was neither warm nor cold, but precisely neutral, like a scale waiting for weight. Victor's attorney spoke first, his words polished smooth by years of similar arguments. He described the development company's investment in the neighborhood, the jobs the new construction would create, the option agreement Maria had signed. He mentioned progress and revitalization and economic benefits, words that floated above the reality of families displaced. Throughout his presentation, Victor maintained the confident smile of someone accustomed to winning. He glanced occasionally at Anna with what might have been pity, as if she were a child who didn't understand how the adult world operated. When it was their turn, Father Miguel explained Maria's history with the house, how she had inherited it from her parents, how she had maintained it through decades of neighborhood decline, how she had been clear about her wishes in her final months. Maria Tavares believed homes were for living, not for profit, he said. She understood that communities are built by people who stay, who put down roots, who know their neighbors' names. Mr. O'Malley testified about the property records and tax payments, his retired clerk's precision lending weight to each detail. Ms. Williams explained the discovery of the administrative inconsistencies in the tax office, her careful language nevertheless making it clear that someone had deliberately marked the property delinquent despite evidence of payment. Then it was Anna's turn. She approached the small podium, her hands trembling slightly. The courtroom seemed to expand around her, the air thick with consequence. "Miss Beatrice," Judge Patel said, "please tell the court how you came to occupy the property at 237 Cortlandt Street." Anna took a deep breath, feeling the weight of eyes upon her. She spoke of her arrival in Newark 4 years earlier, of the string of temporary apartments, of her work cleaning offices and baking bread and cooking for Mrs. Pereira. She described the day Victor had shown her the house, his warning that she wouldn't last through the winter, the blue swallow tile on the kitchen counter. "And how did you discover the documents in question?" the judge asked. Anna described Fado's strange behavior, the loose floorboard, the tin box with its cache of papers. As she spoke, she noticed Judge Patel leaning forward slightly, her expression thoughtful. "Your Honor," Victor's attorney interrupted, "this charming story doesn't change the legal reality. The option agreement clearly gives my client rights to the property for redevelopment." Judge Patel's gaze shifted to him, cool and assessing. "Counselor, the option agreement specified conditions regarding preservation of the original structure. Your client's plans involve complete demolition, which appears to violate those terms." Victor leaned forward and whispered urgently to his attorney, who nodded and stood again. "Your Honor, even if there were technical violations of the option terms, Miss Beatrice has no standing in this matter. She is merely a month-to-month tenant." "That's not entirely accurate," Father Miguel interjected. "According to Maria Tavares' will, of which I am the executor, the property was to be offered to a family matching Ms. Beatrice's exact circumstances, if the development option expired. As the court has seen, that option did expire when the conditions were not met." Judge Patel studied the will again, then glanced at the clock on the wall. "I'm going to take a 15-minute recess to review these documents more thoroughly." As the judge left the courtroom, Victor approached Anna's table, his attorney trailing behind with a concerned expression. "This is becoming unnecessarily complicated," Victor said, his voice low and controlled. "I'm prepared to offer you 3 months' rent for a new apartment, plus moving expenses. A clean break, no further legal entanglements." Anna looked at him, really looked, for perhaps the first time. His confidence suddenly seemed brittle to her, a thin layer of ice, over deeper waters. "Mr. Hargrove," she said quietly, "this isn't about money anymore." A flicker of genuine puzzlement crossed his face. "Everything is about money, Miss Beatrice. It's just a question of finding the right amount." Before Anna could respond, Judge Patel returned, her robes settling around her as she took her seat. The courtroom quieted immediately. "Having reviewed the evidence presented," she began, her voice clear in the hushed room, "I find several matters of significant concern. First, the apparent manipulation of tax records to create a false impression of delinquency. Second, the clear violation of conditional terms in the development option. And third, the existence of a legally executed will with specific provisions regarding the property's disposition." She turned her gaze to Victor and his attorneys. "The court finds that Hargrove Development's option expired when the company failed to meet the conditions requiring preservation of the original structure. Furthermore, the attempt to force eviction through falsified tax records suggests a troubling pattern of behavior that may warrant further investigation." Victor's face darkened, but he remained silent. Judge Patel continued, "As to Maria Tavares' will, I find its provisions both clear and legally binding. As executor, Father Miguel has the authority to implement her wishes regarding transfer of the property." She turned to Anna. Ms. Beatrice, the court recognizes your legitimate interest in this property under the terms of Maria Tavares' will. Further proceedings will be necessary to formalize the transfer, but in the meantime, I am issuing an order preventing any eviction, demolition, or transfer of the property to any other party. The judge's gavel fell with a sharp crack that seemed to echo through Anna's bones. Around her, she heard murmurs and movement, saw Victor and his attorneys gathering papers with tight, controlled movements. Father Miguel squeezed her shoulder gently. "It's not over completely," he warned. "There will be more paperwork, perhaps more hearings. But today was a victory." Anna nodded, unable to find words adequate to the moment. Outside the courtroom, winter sunlight streamed through tall windows, turning the institutional hallway momentarily beautiful. As she walked toward the exit, her phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. What happened? Anna paused, considering how to compress such a complex morning into a simple message. Finally, she typed, "We're keeping our home." As she stepped outside into the cold February air, Anna noticed Victor standing alone by the courthouse steps, phone pressed to his ear, his expression tense. When he saw her, he ended his call abruptly. For a moment, they regarded each other in silence. The developer and the cleaning woman, the planner and the survivor. Then Victor nodded slightly, a gesture that contained neither warmth nor concession, but perhaps a flicker of reluctant respect. "This isn't over," he said, but the words lacked their previous certainty. Anna met his gaze steadily. "No," she agreed, "but it has changed." She continued down the steps, each footfall firm against the stone. Behind her, Victor remained motionless, a solitary figure against the courthouse columns. Ahead lay Cortlandt Street and Sophia, and a house whose walls now seemed to hold something more substantial than temporary shelter. The first fragile tendrils of what might, with care and time, become a home. Spring arrived in Ironbound with hesitant optimism, the kind that comes after long winters. Patches of stubborn snow lingered in shadowed corners, but crocuses pushed through softening earth around the edges of Anna's porch. The house at 237 Cortlandt Street had survived another winter, just as Anna had promised it would. The legal proceedings had stretched through March. Additional hearings, paperwork that required signatures in triplicate, meetings with a pro bono attorney that Father Miguel had arranged. Throughout it all, Anna had continued her patchwork of jobs, arriving home each evening with aching feet, but a growing sense of permanence. The final transfer of property had been completed just last week, the deed bearing Anna's name filed at the county recorder's office with Ms. Williams personally overseeing the process. "We need to celebrate," Sophia declared one Saturday morning in April, her face serious with the importance of the occasion. "Something bigger than just us." Anna looked up from the kitchen table where she'd been mending one of Sophia's school shirts. Through the window, she could see neighbors emerging from winter hibernation. Mr. Singh sweeping his sidewalk, the Rodriguez twins riding bicycles with playing cards clipped to the spokes, Donna Teresa carrying a tray of something that steamed in the cool morning air. "What kind of celebration did you have in mind?" Anna asked, setting aside her needle. Sophia's expression brightened. "A thank you party for everyone who helped us, and a welcome party for the house." "The house has been here much longer than we have," Anna pointed out with a smile. "But it wasn't really ours before," Sophia insisted. "Now it is. On paper and everything." Fado, lying in his favorite spot near the stove, thumped his tail against the floorboards as if registering his vote in favor of Sophia's proposal. Anna considered their resources, limited but not as desperate as before. The property taxes for the coming year had been paid from a small insurance policy Maria had left, another detail discovered in the documents from the tin box. Anna's schedule had stabilized, with Mrs. Pereira recommending her to friends, creating a network of elder care clients that provided steadier income than the office cleaning jobs. "Maybe something simple," Anna suggested. "We could invite people for coffee and cake next Sunday after church." Sophia shook her head, her vision clearly grander. "We should do it outside, on the porch and in the yard, with lights and music." so the whole street can see we're staying. Anna felt a familiar tightening in her chest, the caution of someone accustomed to living with margins too narrow for extravagance. But she looked at her daughter's hopeful face and remembered the day in the courtroom, the judge's words that had transformed possibility into reality. Some moments deserved marking, even when resources were thin. "All right," she agreed, "but we'll need help." Planning the celebration became a project that expanded beyond their walls. Donna Teresa insisted on providing pastries. Not just any pastries, but the special ones we make only for Easter and weddings. Mr. O'Malley offered to bring his ancient record player and collection of fado albums that he'd acquired decades ago from a Portuguese client. Father Miguel promised to stop by with holy water to bless the house, a tradition that Ana remembered from childhood celebrations in Bahia. The Rodriguezes next door volunteered their folding tables. Mrs. Pereira sent her grandson with a box of decorations left from his sister's quinceañera. Mr. Singh appeared one evening with strings of tiny lights that he helped Ana hang along the porch railings and around the front windows. "They are from Diwali," he explained, "the festival of lights that welcomes good fortune." As the plans grew, Ana found herself swept along by her neighbors' enthusiasm. The house itself seemed to respond to the coming celebration. The persistent draft in the hallway mysteriously subsided, the temperamental hot water heater stopped its complaining, the back door ceased sticking in its frame. The Friday before the party, Ana returned from work to find Sophia and 3 school friends on their knees, in the small front yard, planting something in freshly turned soil. "What's happening here?" Ana asked, setting down her shopping bags. Sophia sat back on her heels, dirt streaking her cheeks. "Mrs. Abernathy from science class gave us flower seeds. She said they're called swallow's welcome in Portuguese. Boa entrada das andorinhas." Ana recognized the name of the simple blue flowers that had grown along the walkway of her childhood home. "Where did Mrs. Abernathy get those?" "She said they're from her mother's garden. Her mom came from some place called Azores." Ana felt the peculiar tingle that had become familiar over these months, the sense of invisible threads connecting points she hadn't known were related. She knelt beside the children, examining the freshly patted soil. "They'll bloom in summer if you've planted them right." "We followed the instructions exactly," Sophia assured her, with the confidence of a child who still believed perfect adherence to rules guaranteed success. The day of the celebration dawned clear and mild, as if Newark had decided to present its gentlest self for the occasion. Ana woke early, unable to contain the current of nervous energy running through her. She swept the porch, wiped windows that had accumulated winter's grime, arranged borrowed chairs and conversational clusters. Sophia polished the blue swallow tiles, both the intact one from Maria and the broken fragment from Ana's past, which now hung side by side above the stove like a before and after story told in ceramic. Fado supervised these preparations with dignified attention, moving from room to room as if conducting a final inspection. By noon, the house had transformed. Lights twinkled along the porch despite the daylight, their glow subtle but promising. Tables covered with mismatched cloths held plates of Dona Teresa's pastries, a cake from Mrs. Rodriguez, samosas from Mr. Singh, and fruit arranged in patterns Sophia had learned in art class. Mr. O'Malley's record player sat on a small table near the door, ready to provide music once the initial flurry of arrivals settled. Ana changed into her blue dress, the same one she'd worn to court, and helped Sophia with the buttons of her best shirt. They stood together in the small bathroom, looking at their reflection in the spotted mirror. "We match the house now," Sophia observed, touching the sleeve of Ana's blue dress. "Blue like the swallows." The first guests arrived precisely at 1 o'clock. Dona Teresa and her husband, bearing additional pastries despite Ana's insistence that they'd already provided more than enough. Soon the porch filled with neighbors, some familiar, others known only by sight before today. Father Miguel appeared with holy water and a small contingent from St. James Church. Mrs. Pereira arrived supported by her grandson, her eyes bright with pleasure at the rare outing. Mr. O'Malley started the record player, and the haunting notes of fado filled the air. Music of longing and belonging, of oceans crossed and homes remembered. Children darted between adults' legs, creating their own celebration at a different altitude. Fado accepted attention from all quarters with the benevolent grace of a host who knew his role in bringing this gathering into being. Anna moved through her home, truly her home now, with a sense of wonder. These rooms that had once felt temporary were filling with voices and laughter, with the sense of food from different continents, with stories being exchanged like gifts. She found herself watching faces, collecting expressions of enjoyment as if they were treasures to store against future lean times. Sophia appeared at her side, cheeks flushed with excitement. "Ms. Williams is here," she whispered, "and Deputy Rivera. And look." She pointed toward the sidewalk where a familiar figure stood hesitating, a small pot of blue flowers in his hands. Victor Hargrove had changed since the courtroom confrontation. The development project had been scaled back, redesigned to renovate rather than demolish several of the older homes on adjacent blocks. Rumors in the neighborhood suggested city officials had begun examining his company's previous permits with uncomfortable scrutiny after Judge Patel's ruling. Anna moved to the porch steps, uncertain of the protocol for greeting someone who had tried to evict you. Victor climbed the stairs with careful dignity, the potted plant looking incongruous in his manicured hands. "I was driving by," he said, his usual confidence muted. "Saw the gathering." "We're celebrating," Anna replied simply. Victor nodded, glancing around at the transformed porch, the neighbors mingling in what had once been a property he'd marked for demolition. "I can see that." He held out the potted plant. "Housewarming gift. Hydrangeas. They're supposed to be easy to grow." Anna accepted the pot, its weight solid and cool in her hands. "Thank you." An awkward silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken acknowledgments. Finally, Victor cleared his throat. "Your lawyer, Father Miguel, mentioned you might be interested in helping with the community input sessions for the revised development project. Said you have some ideas about affordable housing." "I have some thoughts," Anna agreed cautiously. "Well, there's a meeting next Thursday at the community center. If you wanted to attend." He glanced at his watch. "I should go." Just wanted to. He gestured vaguely at the plant, then at the celebration surrounding them. As he turned to leave, Sophia appeared beside Anna. "You can stay for cake if you want," she offered, with the straightforward generosity that children sometimes extend when adults are tangled in more complicated emotions. Victor seemed genuinely startled by the invitation. "I appreciate that, but I have another appointment." His eyes met Anna's briefly. "Congratulations on your home." After he departed, Father Miguel approached with a knowing smile. "Reconciliation comes in many forms," he observed. "Some more awkward than others." "Not reconciliation," Anna corrected. "Just recognition, perhaps." As afternoon lengthened toward evening, the celebration continued. Lights became more prominent as shadows gathered. Someone had brought a guitar, and Mr. O'Malley's Fado records gave way to live music. Neighbors who hadn't initially been invited arrived with contributions to the food tables, drawn by the music and laughter. Anna found herself sitting on the porch steps as twilight softened Newark's edges. Sophia leaned against her side, temporarily exhausted by joy. Donna Teresa settled beside them, her lined face content. "Maria would be pleased," she said, nodding toward the house with its glowing windows. She always said houses die without children in them. "I still don't understand why she chose us," Anna admitted. "She never met us." Teresa smiled. "She didn't need to meet you specifically. She knew someone like you would come along, someone who would recognize what she had loved about this place." From inside came the sounds of people beginning to clean up, dishes being gathered, leftover food packaged for guests to take home. The guitar player had started a Brazilian song that Anna recognized from her childhood, and several voices had joined in, some knowing the words, others humming along. "We should help," Anna said, making a motion to rise. Teresa laid a gentle hand on her arm. "Sit a moment longer. Watch what you've created." Anna settled back, observing the scene with fresh eyes. The house glowed from within, its windows warm with light. On the porch, the small bulbs outlined the architecture that had once seemed decrepit, but now appeared simply seasoned by time. Neighbors moved between yard and kitchen, no longer guests but participants in a collective moment. Sophia stirred against her side. "Are you happy, Mai?" Anna considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. Happiness had always seemed a luxury beyond her reach, a state reserved for people with more security, more resources, more certainty. What she felt now was something more textured, more substantial. "I am," she answered, surprising herself with the simple truth of it. "Are you?" Sophia nodded, her eyes on the newly planted flower bed where the swallow's welcome seeds lay waiting beneath the soil. "I was thinking about the birds on the tiles," she said. "How they're always flying, but they also stay in the same place." Anna followed her daughter's gaze to the small patch of earth that would, with luck and tending, bloom blue in summer. The image of the swallows came to mind, wings spread in permanent flight yet fixed in ceramic. Movement and stability, journey and arrival contained in the same form. "Some journeys end where they're supposed to," Anna said softly, stroking Sophia's hair. Inside the house, someone had turned on the kitchen radio, and a news broadcast mingled with conversation. Words drifted out: community development, neighborhood preservation, affordable housing initiatives. The future arriving in fragments, carrying both promise and challenge. Fado appeared in the doorway, surveying his domain with quiet satisfaction. The dog had grown sleek over these months, his ribs no longer visible, his eyes clear and attentive. He made his way to Anna and Sophia, settling at their feet with a contented sigh. Stars appeared above Newark, faint against the city's ambient glow, but persistent in their ancient patterns. Anna thought of all the eyes that had looked up from this spot over decades. Maria and her parents before her, and now Anna and Sophia, a continuity of watching and wondering and belonging. "Tomorrow we'll need to clean everything up," Anna said, practical concerns already reshaping themselves around this new reality. "But not tonight," Sophia murmured, her voice drowsy with the day's emotions. "No," Anna agreed, her arm tightening around her daughter's shoulders. "Not tonight." The celebration continued around them, voices and music weaving together like threads in a complex fabric. The house stood solid beneath and around them, its walls absorbing the sounds of this new chapter. In the small front yard, unseen beneath the soil, seeds waited for the right moment to reach toward light. Anna closed her eyes briefly, feeling the porch step solid beneath her, feeling Sophia's warmth against her side, feeling the strange miracle of arrival after so much movement. When she opened them again, the world seemed both exactly the same and fundamentally transformed, not by any external change, but by the simple, profound shift, from temporary to permanent, from passing through to putting down roots. "We're home," she whispered, the words both statement and promise, both ending and beginning.